Hi, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Nadine Macklin. I am the head of customer success at Carto, so it's a pleasure to be here, pleasure to see so many customers, potential customers, and partners. Today, I have two customers and a partner joining me in presenting the impact of data on analytics for market evaluation and market trends. So I'd like to make some quick introductions, and then we'll get right into it. Closest to me, I have Paul Langston. He is a partner in location intelligence strategy at CACI. Welcome, Paul. Thank you. Next to Paul, we have Robin Cow. Get the name right. Robin is a senior data scientist at Choreograph. Thanks for coming, Robin. And finally, we have Hannah at the end. Hannah Babineau, head of partnerships at the Data Appeal. So thank you all for joining me today, and we'll jump right into it. So I'll start with Hannah. Help us lay a foundation for what is the before scenario. So, what challenges are you typically facing, customers are typically facing in the pre-geospatial era, before they start to implement or use data as a factor in market valuations and market trends?
Definitely, thank you. Hi everyone, good afternoon. I think we see kind of a big spectrum on the kind of the data savviness scale. On kind of the lower end, there's a big learning curve that we run into, and there is a lot of teaching that goes into it. I always say you don't know what you don't know, so it's really helping them make sense of the data. The initial pushback we get, maybe it's we don't have a dedicated data or research team, we don't have analysts in-house. And I think that's what makes Carto such a really great tool, because you bring to life data a bit, you make things a lot more tangible and easier to understand. Probably the second kind of pushback we get is the cost. Oh, the data's too expensive. I always try to counter that by saying, what's the price of not using data? What is the cost of not using that into your strategy? And the third is just time. People, in our experience, we have too many dashboards, too many data, and it's really just trying to, okay, let's take a step back. What are you trying to do, and really make sense of everything?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think we're all on that journey we're both in terms of expertise and skills. So Paul, I'll come to you. On a macro level, when we're trying to get everyone to a place where they trust it, and they can trust it in predictions and trust it to point us in the right decision-making direction. So are there noticeable trends or patterns indicating a surge in the utilization of geodata in market valuations?
Yeah, there is. Well, I've been in the market for about 25 years. Sorry, old man point. But yeah, so I've kind of always dealt with people who are used to using spatial data. So it's a bit of a talking into an echo chamber, and I think everyone uses this. But yeah, I would definitely say it's easier for our business development people, some of them are here, now that, yeah, you're not meeting the sort of Ken Morrisons who used to run Morrisons and go, I don't need any of this, I can just count chimney pots. And I once got in touch with Philip Green. I actually managed to get through to him, the man who owned Arcadia with Top Man and Top Shop. And as a junior salesperson, I got through and said, what can you tell me that I don't know already? I know about every town. I think we are now getting to a point where those people have moved on, and a lot of investors will not touch an investment unless they've got the data that proves stuff. So yeah, that's good for us. I think the challenge now is it's like, but why are we paying for this data? We thought there was free data out there, and actually, yeah, there may be, but can you understand it? Is it reliable?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And Robin, so on a more practical level, because you're a data scientist, in your experience, how can the utilization of this data enhance businesses, like on a more practical level, on the implementation level?
So from the perspective of advertising, the main use case is to try to find the right way to reach the right audience at the right time and with the right message. Mm-hmm. So for instance, the spatial distribution of your target audience segment is going to be paramount, because you want to know where your audience is located. The way we use geospatial targeting is usually we try to focus on high propensity areas where your target audience is more likely to be. And this way you can increase the return on ad spend and make your campaign more efficient. We use media consumption data at the local level to figure out how to allocate budgets to different media channels, because in general, campaigns are not on a single channel. You have out of home, TV, radio, digital. And there's things like getting an idea of the competition landscape. For instance, for a retailer that have a certain point of sales, so it could be on physical space, so with physical point of sales, or in the digital space. So in the physical space, if you have a retailer, you might want to consider like the relative proximity between your stores and that of competitors. So for instance, if you're in an area where you're lacking stores, you might want to modulate your message to direct your customers to your online platform. If there's a lot of competition, you might want to, I don't know, maybe propose in-store promotions to draw customers away from your competitors. And if you're dominating the market in terms of proximity, you probably want to control your spend while maintaining market dominance in this case. Mm-hmm. And in the digital space, it's very similar. So in this case, you can use digital trends from like browser search queries, things like this, at the local level. And then you identify market potential and brand potential within that market, within that local market.
Yeah. Great. So some of the things I heard from you, and I'll open it up to both Paul and Hannah. So the right data to the right audience for decision making. Why isn't everyone doing this today?
I'm going to pick up probably on what Hannah just said. I think in no particular order, it's probably time, cost, and knowledge, which I think is kind of what you alluded to. So it's like a lot of businesses ultimately start because they're selling a product or they're selling a service. Getting their data lined up is a minor inconvenience at the beginning. We want to get our product out to the market. And yeah, it's often not until you suddenly go, oh, hold on, why is this branch not working? It's always worked. We've opened in Biggleswade. Why isn't Biggleswade working? Or we've got to now get investment in our business and we've got to prove that. Suddenly there's that point of, I need that knowledge. And suddenly it's, well, have I got the time to get there? Have I got the knowledge to get there? And again, why am I having to pay for this? Because I thought I could just use Google Maps. So I think those are my three. So.
No, I would completely agree. My fourth would be maybe stubbornness, or people we've always been doing it this way. And if they want to base their decisions on what worked in the past, and maybe they're a little bit scared of what an objective metric would show. So sometimes we run into that too, because once you kind of make things in a bit more objectively, people kind of have to look internally and understand, okay, are we doing the right things internally? So sometimes.
Well, let's pivot to a little bit to some positive examples that you've seen. Like Paul, you're convincing customers all the time, all day, to use this as part of their strategy. Robin, you're actually probably hands-on in it, and Hannah, on your side, you're selling the data. You're saying, data first. The trees before the forest, right? But if you can share some positive examples, some things that have been successes that you've observed with the audience, so maybe we can replicate those.
Sure. How much time do we have? No, the beautiful thing I think about spatial data that we're seeing today is it's endless. Like there's so many infinite use cases for it. Ones that we typically see is site selection and also distribution. So kind of our take on spatial data is the qualitative approach, or geolocating the voice of customer. So we work a lot in sentiment analysis, so understanding the reputation, the perception of POIs, which can be aggregated holistically. So kind of last year I spoke about the use case of Campari, which it's one of my favorites. So they were looking to understand where should they distribute Aperol internationally and how can they create this spritz experience, and understanding, okay, it's not just knowing which place serves alcohol, because in the case of the UK, pubs aren't their target audience by any means. So really trying to understand, okay, who are these places, kind of that after work atmosphere, when are they busiest, who's frequenting them, and kind of really targeting those and not just a blanket approach. which geospatial was invaluable for. There's also things like destination management, local government. So we see, I've seen in the metro today, they're now advertising visit Los Angeles was on there, visit Jordan I saw. So they're doing that with a reason. So certainly there's data behind that people in London or people traveling within London would also make a good traveler to go to their destinations. So really kind of just putting the pieces together, and the where and the when is crucial.
Yeah, and as you say, this is sort of bread and butter to what we do. And it can be, again, back to what you said, it's like, it can be just like, oh my God, I can actually see my customers on a map for the first time. We were talking about that sort of just before we came on. It's like, for some people, it's like, oh my God, you've never seen that before. So there can just be those, even at the simplest engagements, it can just be that, right, okay, I can see that people are following logical patterns. I can now use that to find the right sites. And yeah, every business has a perception of who their customers are, but it's only when you actually put that up against something like our Acorn segmentation and you go, okay, that's what they are. Now, usually people go, yeah, I kind of knew that. And you go, well, that's good because that's your business. Yeah. But it's backing that up. It's maybe dispelling some of the myths around who they thought their customers were, or one group and they're not, or a group they didn't know about that are there. But then it's really just about finding those. And yeah, again, this is so many simple things on a map. And yeah, again, I want Biggleswade example. I had a really simple client yesterday who said, for some reason, this branch has never worked. And you just showed them a map yesterday with some basic demographic data and went, yeah, I can see why now. And we were going, yeah, so when we come back with your strategy in a couple of weeks, it's going to be those dark shaded areas down there. And they went, yeah, that makes sense. But we're quantifying it and yeah, helping them to stop making those risky decisions and increasing their chance of hitting it right first time.
It like holds up a megaphone to some things. Like they kind of know, but this is now obvious. Yeah.
Yeah, so for me, it's kind of started with the first pilot study we did at Choreograph, so that my colleague Georgios presented last year. So we use geospatial targeting as an alternative to third-party cookies. So instead of targeting individual, we target individual as part of a cohort, right, in a location-based fashion. And since then, there's been a constant demand for this type of methodologies because they're privacy safe. And they are potentially more robust to data deprecation issues that we've seen for third-party cookies. So, and since then, we've started with some pitches in North America and the UK, and then expanded to many other markets. And we've had notable wins in these markets, also in Asia. It's kind of a testament that agencies, the clients are confident in the methodology. Now, hopefully, we'll get more in-campaign and results and improve our measurement capabilities at the same time.
Yeah, super. Well, I'll ask 2 more questions and then we'll open it up to the audience. So if you have a question, start thinking about it. One question is, we might have folks in the audience who are thinking, that sounds really good, but how do I convince my leadership, or how do I convince my customer, or how do I make a case, a stronger case? Any advice on that?
I was thinking about this last night as I did my last-minute preparation, and it sort of reminded me of, like, if you've watched Dragon's Den and people standing in front of Peter Jones and him going, you don't know your numbers. Why are you here trying to get investment in your business and you don't know your numbers?
Right.
Spatial data gives you the chance to do that. You can actually be able to quantify stuff. It's no longer good enough just to say, it feels like the right thing. I've got a client at the moment who is about to make a massive investment in a site somewhere in London. They know they want to do it. They know it's cool to do it, but they can't get that money signed off just on wanting and cool. Right. So this gives you the chance to actually quantify stuff, prove your points, cover your back, but give that evidence. So yeah, it's like, yes, there are costs associated with it, but it's think how much money you've blown by buying that wrong site. Okay, this may feel expensive, but compared to the £1 million you spent on that site, it's paid for itself.
And in this economy, we have to be double sure before we move forward, right? Yeah. Any other advice?
Yeah, I think the cool thing with spatial data is it's scalable. So I would say start small if you're unsure, a proof of concept, whether it's a small area of a city or a city and not a country size, and really just kind of play with it a little bit to see what comes out.
I love that. That's good. And a plug for Carter. Yeah, prototyping can be quick. And it kind of gives you just a little bit of enough juice to say, let's go bigger. Yeah.
So yeah, global scalability is always like quite a big requirement in our business. But something about spatial data, like that by the visual nature of it, usually it's really well received because you can actually showcase something. It's not just, you don't have to make too much effort in interpreting. It's already, a lot of things already there. I mean, you should always, but a lot of the information is already there, is already visible. And usually it's very well received by the clients once you make you can make a, convincing use case.
It speaks for itself. Yeah. Well, I'll hold off on my last question because I think someone will ask it. It was going to be around AI and the future. So I'm pretty sure that someone will take us there. Any questions from the audience for our panelists on the use of data in market evaluations, market analysis? And if you don't, I'll go with the AI question. Okay. Last chance? Okay, well, we'll go with, okay. So we'll go with the AI question, yes. So, well, our future, every time we talk about the future these days, there are two letters that accompany it. So how do you anticipate emerging technologies and methodologies will be affected in the future?
Who wants to?
I think if we knew the right answer, we would be millionaires by now.
I'll go first. So like so as of late, we've been using some of the low-code and no-code capabilities of Carto.
Yeah.
It's one way to bring insights to the client in a faster way. So like you give them, essentially you give them the capability to use for themselves, for them without any need for technical capability. What I see as well for in the use case of advertising, we definitely need to make the link between modeling results and measurements. Because in general, with the campaigns metrics, we do not have them there's no spatial component to it. If we had this, we could build tools like more reactive tools like in-campaign local optimization strategies. For instance, you suggested an area that you thought was going to be high performing. It turns out it's not. You need to be able to redirect the budget in real time, right? And also using as predictive, so pre-campaign prediction, right? Another thing would be, so I forgot to mention this, but it's one of the temporal analysis. So we do use event-based data. In general, it's more as a point to the story, right? But you could think about predicting trends in the future, and at least to some degree predicting local trends, for instance, like for demand in certain areas, to be able to build strategy over longer time scales, longer than a typical ad campaign.
Yeah.
And I think another one is hard to not mention Gen AI in this case, right? So like we've been already working on capabilities to build custom audience segments directly from text, right? So that would give our agencies more flexibility in defining these audiences, right? And get direct market distribution, spatial distribution of the audiences just from typing a blurb, for instance. Right?
Yeah.
Something else that we've used is using Gen AI is adding audience segment attributes and spatial features as context variables to large language models, and that's allowed us to provide location-dependent messaging, basically finding out which message is the most relevant for a given audience, a given location. Right? So initially we've done that for text, but we could extend this to using multimodal LLMs. So for instance, like taking from ad images, so without having to read any text, right, from the ads or from the video, for instance.
Yeah, awesome.
Yeah, and I think sort of from our world, yeah, we've been using machine learning for years. We used to call it modeling, but yeah, absolutely. AI, there are people in the audience from our company here who are much cleverer than me, who are already working on sort of AI agents, and it was interesting to talk about what Carto and others are doing in that space, because yeah, we are going to be moving from the world of I'm presenting you a report and a map screen to a should I make this decision, yes or no. So that is going to happen. We're increasingly starting to use AI to generate the code. And again, someone talked about that to speed up that process. But I think there are inherent challenges in that we need to make sure everything's secure. We're obviously working on confidential client data, so we have to make absolutely sure any models that we're training are secure, but also that they're based on safe data. And I mean, not just by safe, I mean reliable. It's not just free stuff. Again, free can be good, free can be dubious. And I think, yeah, just things like better transaction level data, Chris talked about some of that earlier, and mobility data are giving us insights into consumers that we've never had before. They're now standard, but yeah, using generative AI techniques, we can start to interpret them much quicker. So it's a bit scary, but quite exciting.
Yeah, yeah, and it gives us a tool for the very transient type of data as well, so we can always be almost real time, right? Yeah. Hannah?
I was going to say the same thing. I think things will only become more real time. I'm sure there will kind of be more of a deeper integration between external and internal data as well. So not only where should I open a store, but based on the past stores I've opened, what can I expect the return on investment to be, who those people. So I think only kind of the combination of everything will make it more powerful in the outcome.
Fantastic. Well, thank you all so very much for joining me on stage today, because much better to hear from you than for me. So thank you, audience. I know we have 2 minutes. I'd love to, any last questions, open it up. If not, thank you for your time. Oh, there was a question. Yeah.
Do you have any notable failures, and what did you learn from them?
That's good. You know, we were talked about challenges and successes and trends. Let's talk about failures. What did we learn from that?
Yeah. Yes, we have. Yeah, it'd be interesting. I'm going to say probably usually the failures come down to human error. Yeah, unfortunately, the reality is often you make mistakes in things. Yeah, and the way you learn is you've got to get better procedures in there. It's going to be interesting to see if an AI world takes that human failing out, or whether it hits a different failing. But yeah, yeah, I'm sure we've had models which aren't quite as successful as we want them to be. But yeah, some sectors are also incredibly hard to predict because humans aren't rational. So yeah, we produce models that try to seek rational behaviors. Sometimes you've always got outliers, but yeah, usually there's a reason for it. You need to understand it.
Yeah, it's usually a blind spot, right? The things that you didn't know, yeah. And next time you're like, all right, I'll take that into consideration, or maybe weight it a little more heavily, right?
Yeah, so on the failure side, the learning to deal with spatial data at the beginning was not always straightforward. So like one of our framework of choice is H3, right? And there's plenty of different ways you can map data to H3, and there's wrong ways you can map your data to H3. We had to learn the hard way. But now we've learned from this the many more flexible mapping methods to unify our data sets. Right? So like typically it depends on the relative size of your administrative boundaries versus the target resolution in H3. Depending on how these relate to each other, you can't use the same approach every time. Mm-hmm. So yeah, that was a hard lesson to learn. Yeah.
Yeah. Completely agree with both. I think to add maybe being too specific, sometimes that can maybe not less of a failure, but more of a challenge that we run into. Maybe someone has in mind we would just want a specific category or industry or an area, and it kind of doesn't show the full story.
Yeah, kind of going to prove what you already know versus a little bit of more open. Is it really a good investment? Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, thank you again. It was such a pleasure. Thank you, audience.